I can't do this for much longer, I groan, staring out the windows at the glittering skyline of Tartarus. Blaze will be holding court in just under an hour, and my night will go the same of every night that has come before. His servants will dress me in a ridiculously expensive gown. I'll wear it for a sum total of 1 hour, while the aristocrats of the Calypso pack whisper at me behind their hands and Blaze fawns over me. I'll eventually excuse myself from dinner with the excuse of nausea, only to return to my rooms and wait for Blaze to turn up and try to paw me. I'll hypnotize him and send him to bed. Then lie awake agonizing over Bastien, Lila, and our future. Weeks have passed, but nothing has changed, and things aren't getting any easier. I'm getting more confident in using my magic and practice most of the day. But as I become more adept, my body grows weaker. My pregnancy is progressing just as it should. But carrying twins takes more of a toll on my energy, mood, and health than carrying Lila did. And I find myself sleeping almost as often as I'm awake. You just have to hold on a little while longer. Helene encourages, patting my hand. I don't have a while, I argue. I'm getting bigger every day, and twins almost always come early. The doctor didn't share this piece of news with me, but I found a few books in Blaze's extremely neglected library, and discovered that I can expect my babies at 36 weeks instead of 40. I'm frightened and heartsore. And every milestone that would usually fill me with joy thunden, like feeling the first gentle kicks in my womb soven. You still have months to go, Celine. Helene attempts to soothe me, and the rebels are getting closer to putting their plans in motion every day. Well, tell them to hurry up already, I exclaim, throwing my hands up and pacing away from my mentor. Helene remains silent behind me, and as the seconds tick by, I feel increasingly guilty for taking such a tone with her. I'm sorry, I murmur, wrapping my arms protectively around myself. I just miss Bastien, I miss Lila, and I'm terrified of still being here when the new babies come. My eyes burn with tears. What if I never see my family again? What if Blaze wins? Of course you're scared, darling. Helene responds sympathetically, but you can't let your fear consume you. You have to keep fighting. How are they? How are Bastien and my father? I question, thinking of all the other fears which suddenly seem too inconsequential when all our lives are at stake, like the fact that I promised Bastien he wouldn't miss this pregnancy and am now breaking my word, or the very new concern that I might never get to meet my father when I've only just learned that he still lives. Your mate is formidable and determined, Helene answers. As long as you're all right, he'll suffer any discomfort. That's what I'm afraid of. I sigh. I don't want him to suffer for me, Sue. He's already been through so much. If it makes you feel any better, he's not being harmed. Helene assures me. He's caged, but Blaze has no reason to torture him the way he tortured my father. I guess finishing her thought when she cannot. Yes. She agrees. I wish I could see them, even just for a few moments. I confess, trying to concoct a plan to get down to the dungeons unseen for the 1000th time, and coming up short yet again. Is Blaze still promising you proof of life? Helene inquires, wrapping her bony arm around my shoulders. Yes. I utter blankly, if I'm good. Of course, the problem with this guarantee is that the tyrant gets to decide what good means, and when he will make good on his word. Every time I ask, he says the same thing, all in good time, pet. I've thought about hypnotizing him to take me to see them, but I'm not strong enough. It takes all my energy just to keep his lust at bay. I share. You just have to keep taking it one day at a time. And trust fate, Helen instructs. That's a lot easier said than done. I grumble. Fate led us here in the first place. I can't just sit back and let my life fall to pieces around me. That isn't what I'm suggesting, and you know it. Helene scolds. People make terrible mistakes when they second-guess the goddess's plans. It doesn't mean you give up or become passive and just let the world toss you about. It just means that everything is meant to happen in its own time. And if the goddess intends for me to lose my children, I growl. What then, Celine? You must remember that Valanas are the embodiment of the goddess's power on earth. She would never sacrifice them. Helene reminds me. You and Lila are the last surviving members of her line. It's not my place to assume I know her mind, but if I had to guess, you're here with Blaze for a reason. He's been hunting her children for far too long. And you have a chance to put a stop to all of that. I take a step back, unused to hearing Helene speak so openly about her divinations. She's normally vague and infuriatingly cryptic, but she must think I'm on the edge of giving up to speak so plainly. However, the idea that this might all be in the goddess's designs for the survival of my bloodline doesn't comfort me one bit. I don't want to serve some higher purpose. I snap. I just want my family to be whole and safe. I know that, little mother, Helene murmurs, but none of you will ever be safe as long as men like Blaze are hunting you. If you and your children survive, Valanas might not be an endangered species in another few centuries. You have to fight for their future. Why did she even create us anyway? I ask. I mean, what good are we doing by being here? What use is giving a few women extra powers, especially when it makes them targets for monsters? Helene studies me closely, and I can feel her worry as if it's my own. Even if she wasn't telegraphing the emotion to me, her continued presence here would be proof enough. Her visits to my room are normally very brief. It is no easy feat for her to bypass all the guards and secret police to reach me. And if she's caught, all our plans could be at risk. However, here she stands, making no indication of an imminent departure. I must really be going off the rails. I don't pretend to understand the goddess's ways, Celine, but I know that the less magic in the world, the worse off all people will be. She explains thoughtfully. If I had to guess, I'd say she created Valanas to be stewards of her light, trusted guardians of the magic which keeps the world turning. Perhaps if you had not been hunted so terribly, men like Blaze would never have come into power. Perhaps shifter societies would be more just. Or maybe not, she shrugs. All we can say for sure is that she must have had her reasons, and that's good enough for me. Well, if she wants me to survive, then why did she do this? Why did she allow hunters to be born in the first place? I hiss, feeling more and more angry at our beloved deity. What kind of god stands by and lets their creations suffer? I have the feeling Helene desperately wants to roll her eyes. After all, she's told me repeatedly. She doesn't know the goddess's mind. Yet I cannot quell my outrage. I cannot contain my fury with the entire world and everything in it. If suffering to build character was the idea, have I not suffered enough? Have I not lost and sacrificed enough to reach this point? Why must I suffer more? Why must my innocent children suffer? Celine, I know you're angry, and I don't blame you, Helene confides. And one day, I hope you find the answers to your questions. All I can tell you is that the way I see it, benevolent gods grant their creations free will, because otherwise we would all be prisoners. And these are the consequences. These are the risks of allowing people to make their own way in the world. So I have to fight Blaze to take back the freedom that should have been ours in the first place. I demand incredulously. I don't accept that. I don't want to fight Blaze. There has to be another way. I speak the words as a cry of dissent, but they come out a plea. If you can find another way, I will gladly follow you, Helene vows. But I cannot see a path that does not lead to Blaze, and you cannot be sure if I'll even succeed if I face him. I press softly. Number, she confirms. I cannot. She moves forward to take my face between her wrinkled hands. But I'll tell you this much, Celine. If you don't face him, you will fail. There's no doubt about it. Thousands of black-clad bodies poured from the city's underground before the sun had even risen, charging forward with homemade weapons and magic wielders at their sides. Some of the outlaws shifted into their animal forms, wolves, bears, and big cats nipping at the heels of those running on 2 feet. But others remained upright, wanting the freedom to carry knives, clubs, and batons. The Calypso security forces were completely unprepared for the assault, half of them falling where they stood, while the others ran to sound the alarms, warn their comrades, or simply escape. It was Blaze's greatest failing to be so cruel to those he trusted to defend his pack. When things were calm and individuals could be picked out for failing their duties, fear was more than sufficient to keep them in line. But amidst such chaos, the sentries and guards held no loyalty for the tyrant, and had no interest in sacrificing their lives for his sake. They were wise to run. The uprising did not only have the element of surprise on its side, its proponents also had years of rage and the passion of their cause driving them forward. They struck down guards right and left, taking advantage of the surprise scattering of defenders and trying to do as much damage as possible before Blaze's entire army came down on them. The rebel leaders remained at the center of the pack, sending their followers out in every direction to confuse Blaze's sentry. If everything went as planned, the tyrant wouldn't know their target until it was too late. He would think it was a run-of-the-mill uprising intended to overthrow his court, not a highly strategic rescue mission for 3 prisoners. In truth, they planned on freeing many more, but they doubted many were members of their fight. Blaze killed almost all of his opponents, unless they could be of use to him. Still, it was safe to say that most of the occupants of his dungeons did not deserve to be there. Many of the outlaws knew they would not live to see the sunset, and further understood that their lives would be lost in what was primarily a show of smoke and mirrors. Still, they fought, driven forward by the hope that their sacrifice would lay the foundations for the cause to succeed someday in the future. Down in the dungeons, Bastian, James, and Grayson heard the first signs of commotion within minutes. The rebels stationed outside the sprawling prison breached the walls just as the guard was changing. And though the men had been fast asleep, blaring alarms and the distant crashes and screams of battle soon roused them. "I think this is it," Grayson declared, an uncharacteristic note of hope in his deep voice. "We'll have a better chance of getting out of here if we can meet them halfway," Bastian proposed, remembering what his fellow prisoners had told him about their prior escape attempts. When they discussed picking the locks, he learned that James had figured out the method after about 5 years of trying, but he'd never been able to get beyond the 2 floors above them once free. There were simply too many guards, and too many subsequent barricades. "Let's go," James agreed, extending his claws into the heavy iron lock on his cell. Bastian and Grayson both attempted to unlock their own cages, but James' cell door swung open before either of them could succeed. The elder man rushed through the dark dungeon, unlocking first Bastian, then Grayson's cells. When they emerged, Bastian was able to get his first good look at the other men. Grayson was probably 10 years older than he himself, with dark hair and eyes. He suspected that under the right conditions the man would be built like a tank, but he was so malnourished that only the shadow of the wolf he once was remained. James' hair was streaked with gray. He was tall and lanky, and when Bastian looked up into his handsome face, he could see flashes of Celine. As one, the 3 prisoners shifted, charging for the stairs with Bastian in the lead. As the most recent member of their little crew to be imprisoned, he had the most energy, and would have been the strongest even if they'd all been free. The first guards they reached were easy sport. Bastian dispatched them while James freed the prisoners on the level above their cell, adding to their ragtag pack 1 outlaw at a time. One grizzled, scarred shifter after another emerged from their cages, shifting into animal forms ranging from wolf to lion, and charging into the breach. On the 3rd level above their cells, they reached the first true roadblock. The guards on this level had run upstairs to help defend the prison, taking their keys with them. The locked door barring this level was not the sort James could pick with his claws, and the men looked at each other with pensive expressions. "Do we wait?" one of the recent escapees inquired mentally. "We can't afford to risk it," Grayson answered, standing beside a wolf with an injured paw. "Well, we can't break down iron bars." Bastien grimaced. "Anyone have any ideas?" A hulking man stood at the back of the assembled shifters, still in human form. At first, Bastien had assumed he simply wanted the use of his hands. But now, as he moved closer, he realized the man wasn't a shifter at all. "Let me try," the prisoner suggested, raising his hands. The faint tang of magic floated off of his skin, and the shifters watched with bated breath to see if he had the strength to call on his powers. The magic wielder gritted his teeth and thrust his hands towards the door lock, and the iron slowly began to glow. The man was clearly weak, with fresh bruises dotting his skin beneath his jumpsuit, but he eventually managed to send a powerful enough surge of magic outward with a heavy groan, and the door swung open. Cheering in their heads, the shifters stormed through the gate and continued up the winding stairs of the prison, their numbers growing with every level they passed. The farther they made it, the stronger their hope became. This, James and Grayson realized, is what they'd been missing all these years. They needed an outside force to attack from above while they attacked from below. A distraction to pull all the guards away long enough to make their break and grow their numbers. Soon a small army was charging up through the dungeons with Bastien at the helm, and every step he took brought him one step closer to Celine. It was all he could do to stay back with the other prisoners rather than racing ahead, knowing he was stronger in a pack than on his own. They were on the 12th floor when they finally collided with the invading outlaws, and to Bastien's surprise, Grayson tackled the huge wolf at the front of the rebel force, and was soon rolling around with him like a pair of puppies. "I take it that's Matthew?" he asked James, unable to decipher the overexcited wolf's yips and playful snarls. "Looks that way," James confirmed wryly. "I don't think I've ever seen Grayson smile before." It was mostly a joke. After all, the men had rarely seen each other's faces, and the shifter in question was currently in wolf form. Still, there was no denying the joy radiating off of the two wolves, and Bastien understood exactly what his father-in-law meant. Ever since arriving in the dungeons, Grayson had been nothing but a cynical grump, understandably so, but a grump nonetheless. It was strange and wonderful to see him so light-hearted. They weren't the only ones. He was beginning to suspect that Blaze had been keeping more rebels alive than any of them suspected, because quite a few wolves were reuniting with their friends before him, and unfortunately stopping their escape in its tracks. As touching as this is, he called over the commotion, "We need to move." The wolf called Matthew straightened up, eyeing Bastien curiously. "Are you Durand?" "I am," Bastien confirmed. "Good." The other man nodded. "Is everyone here?" "Yes," Bastien declared. "We've opened all the cells." "Then, let's go," Matthew ordered, sending the sea of shifters off at a run. The imprisoned blended with the free outlaws, their brutalized bodies clearly identifying them, but their ferocity even stronger than that of their comrades. Bastien had been trying not to let himself get his hopes up subid, despite his advice to his fellow inmates to stay optimistic. Deep down, he'd been feeling increasingly despondent as the weeks dragged on. However, watching the men around him racing towards freedom and destroying everything in their path, he not only felt more confident he'd be able to rescue Celine, but even began to believe it was possible to unseat Blaze completely. 8 more floors passed by in a whir, already cleared by the rebels. Before long, Bastien, James and Grayson were bursting out into the fresh morning air, the sun blinding their eyes, but the taste of freedom heavy on their tongues. There was nothing to stop them now. Guards and secret police littered the ground, and the entire escape had happened so quickly. Blaze's army was still assembling. A horn rang out in the distance, and suddenly all the rebels were pouring back beneath the streets, returning to the safety of the underground before the backup forces could swarm their flanks and steal their freedom once more. It was a retreat, but a retreat necessary to fight another day. Bastian, James, and Grayson were free, and their next target would be Blaze's palace itself. I slam a pillow over my face before I can stop to consider what the sound might mean. It's not until my bedroom door swings open and a young servant girl pokes her head in that I lower the plush implement. She pulls me out of bed and helps me into a robe while my head spins. An alarm. I think hopefully that's bad for Blaze, and what's bad for Blaze can only be good for us. Luna answers slyly, "What's happened?" I ask the girl helping me, "We're going into lockdown, miss." The young servant answers, breaking the silence her station usually demands. "What do you mean lockdown?" I question. "What's happened?" "I don't know. I've never heard the alarms go off before, but the Alpha's orders were unequivocal. The entire above ground is locking down, so it can't be a fire or flood." She reasons, her voice hoarse from lack of use. "Did you speak to him yourself?" I ask, trying to figure out exactly what's going on. If it's just a lockdown, and he doesn't know where I am, I might be able to get away. But if she was specifically sent to retrieve me, I probably can't escape without endangering her. "Number." She shakes her head. "This is just standard procedure. I'm taking you to one of the safe rooms." "Wait." I cry, pulling her to a stop. "What's your name?" "Clara." The girl replies shyly, "Do you want to stay here, Clara?" I inquire, already imagining making a break for the dungeons. If the city is on lockdown, all the guards will be called away to help, and I'm always strongest first thing in the morning. This could be my chance to free myself, Bastian, and my father at once. Helene's voice rings in my ears, urging me to be patient, but only a fool would ignore such an opportunity. I don't understand." Clara murmurs in confusion. "I mean, this city is a nightmare and I have to get out of here before it's too late." I declare, "I don't want to get you in trouble, and I don't know what you might risk by running, but I want to give you the chance to escape with me. Scape with me, that's what you want." "You're going to escape?" she repeats, stunned. "I don't know what's going on right now, but I guarantee Blaze and his guards are more distracted than they'll ever be. So yes, I'm going to try." I explain. I can't," Clara whimpers. "I have a family here. Then all I ask is that you give me a head start." I beg, taking her by the shoulders. "Do you know where the dungeons are?" "In the East End, just past the park. But you can't go out there," she insists. "The city might be under attack." "Goddess, I hope so." I breathe, stripping off my robe and nightgown and pulling on a pair of maternity jeans, a black top and flats. "Please promise me you won't tell them where I've gone. You never saw me." I state firmly, forcing a bit of hypnotic power into my words. Clara's body goes sort of limp, her jaw slackens, and she repeats, "I never saw you." "Good girl," I praise, dashing out of the room. If we were in Elysium, I might have been able to use one of the many secret passageways lining the pack house for emergencies. But Blaze hasn't trusted me enough to tell me about any such precautions in his mansion. So I dart down the halls, hugging the walls and praying I don't encounter any sentries. The first few corridors are clear, and I have to think that they've all gone to handle whatever disaster spurred the alarms. I'm trying to be as quiet as possible, but I'm also painfully aware that my scent is leaving a trail behind me and anyone seeking to find me will be able to follow it with little difficulty. I have to move fast, even if it means risking exposing my powers. I haven't been able to explore the mansion as much as I'd like to, but I know the southern wing has multiple exits, and I have to assume that most of Blaze's security force have gone to the guardhouse beside the front courtyard. I have to pause at every other corner I reach, waiting for neat rows of marching sentries to pass by before I continue on. Something serious is definitely going down for Blaze's security forces to be mobilizing this way. And I can only pray this is something to do with the rebels. I weave myself into the shadows as I run, concealing my presence in the dim light of early morning and blinding the few guards I do encounter. The rising sun blinds me when I finally break out into the fresh air, feeling a rush of exhilaration to think I'm finally out of the Alpha's palace. It almost feels too easy, but I can't stop to overthink it now. I have to move. The first block past the mansion is littered with fallen shifters, and I realize my hopes must be correct. Someone is attacking the Calypso leadership, and I doubt it's another pack. I feel a brief moment of hesitation as I worry I might be mistaken for one of Blaze's devoted followers and make myself a target, but I don't have time to waste. I run towards the park for all I'm worth, feeling my heart race as my excitement grows. I'm only 2 blocks away when something or someone huge grabs me from behind, lifting my feet off the ground as I yelp in surprise. Struggling to escape the man holding me, I kick and claw in his beefy arms, so preoccupied with getting away that I'm not even paying attention to my surroundings. Ahem. I jerk my head up at the sound of someone clearing their throat, my eyes going wide as I see a line of guards circling myself and my captor. There at their center is Blaze, watching me with the sort of twisted hunger he always gets when he comes to my rooms at night. My heart falls into my stomach, plummeting so quickly I feel sure I'm going to be sick. Number, I think desperately. No. He can't win that easily, but, clearly, he can. Nice try, Celine. Blaze smirks cruelly. You really came very close. You should be proud. Thrashing against the guards holding me, I can only snarl, screw you. Of course, he sighs, feigning regret. You do know that your track record of good behavior just went out the window. What does that matter? I hiss. You haven't given me any proof that Bastien is all right. How do I know you haven't killed him and are just lying to keep me in line? I bluff, knowing full well that my husband is alive because of Helene's spying. You don't, Blaze declares, tracing the silver bracelet on my wrist, and unfortunately for you, you're not going to. He chuckles, clearly thinking he doesn't need to keep his word now that I'm powerless. You just have to trust me. I will never trust you. And unless you give me proof of life, I will never stop fighting you, I threaten. Oh yes, you will. Blaze counters fiercely. You'll behave because if you don't, I'll kill your mate. You aren't entitled to proof of life or anything else. He argues, tapping the bracelets again. You belong to me, and if you care about Bastien, you'll obey. Blaze pulls my body close to his hands an iron cage around my arms even as I writhe to escape him. He's not the only card I've got hidden up my sleeve, pet. I can get rid of him to punish you, and still command your cooperation. I know he's referring to my father, but I'm not supposed to know he's alive. What are you talking about? You don't want to force my hand and find out. Blaze promises, pushing me into his guard's rough hands. Take her back to her rooms and lock her in. I snarl and fight the entire way back, forcing them to drag me kicking and screaming. Blaze might be a monster, but I don't believe he'll kill Bastien as long as I'm his prisoner. He's not stupid, and only an idiot would throw out a winning hand. He knows as long as he has Bastien. I'm stuck in his palace, no matter how unhappy or rebellious I may behave. When my bedroom door slams behind me, I turn on my heel and repeatedly bang my fists into the wood, yelling obscenities at the guards striding away down the hall. I hate to admit it, but Blaze won this hand. He still has Bastien, I'm still his slave, and we're running out of time. Making myself wait to take action until hearing from Helene is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. My relief over escaping the dungeons with Grayson and James wore off almost immediately after learning that Celine was still Blaze's captive. I hadn't really expected her to get away at the same time we did, but my disappointment and worry, once Matthew filled us in, was proof of the hope I hadn't let myself acknowledge. The worst part is waiting for the witch to appear afterwards. But my new allies keep reminding me that I won't be any help to Celine if I get captured again. Only this fact keeps me from storming back to Blaze's palace and ripping the place apart to find my mate. If I thought the alpha would face a challenge head-on, things might be different. But it's painfully obvious now that he would never allow a fair fight between us. He's the worst kind of alpha, one that relies on his army to maintain his power, rather than letting his strength speak for itself. When Helene finally appears, striding into the rebel headquarters as if she owns the place, all my previous concerns evaporate. She hasn't come alone, Fiden. In fact, she's with the very last person I ever expected to see here. Frederick. What the hell is he doing here? I demand, surging forward and barely restraining myself from attacking my cousin. Easy, Bastian. He's the one who connected me to your friends here. Helen explains, holding her hand up to stall my aggression. He wants to help Celine. Are you out of your mind? I exclaim, feeling a fresh rush of fury consume my body. It took me a long time to finally sort through all the memories Arabella erased, especially those I gained after her poison campaign began sweat. But I had a lot of time to think in the dungeons, and I remember perfectly now. When I look at Frederick, all I see is the foul man raising his hand to strike my pregnant mate in broad daylight. And I want to rip him to pieces for that alone. Never mind all his other crimes. Celine had the same reaction when I told her. Helene assures me, but in the end she agreed beggars can't be choosers when it comes to allies. You're telling me Celine knows about this? I inquire, thrusting my hand towards Frederick indignantly. Yes, she does. Helene confirms gently. Trust your mate, Alpha, pacing back and forth across the floor. I try to come to terms with this information, trying to find some logic in how Celine could ever agree to work with my deranged cousin. What was her state of mind, I press. She was fine, Helene stated simply, a suggestion I cannot believe given the circumstances, frightened and stressed, but thinking clearly, I assure you, Helene added, seeming to read my mind. For weeks now, I've been imagining Celine suffering at Blaze's hands, and every time I picture her, my morbid thoughts conjure some new misfortune. Now I'm picturing her in chains, so desperate to get away from the horrible Alpha that she'd agree to risks, trusting the least honorable wolf on the continent. It's too much. Dragging my hand through my hair, I grit my teeth and zero in on the true issue. I need to see her. I need to talk to her. You will? Helene promises me steadily, in time. Where is she? What's our plan? I question, Axel rising close to the surface as I consider all the threats and hurdles we're going to have to overcome to finish this horrible chapter of our lives. She's in Blaze's palace. Helene sighs, clearly following my frantic train of thought. The entire city has gone into lockdown because of the prison break. She doesn't know you're free, and I can't get a message to her with everything under such tight security. So what? I clarify, scanning the grim faces around me. We're just stuck. I didn't say that, Helene answers, clearly exasperated. I swear you young people are so impatient. I'm impatient because her life is on the line, Fadid. Our baby's life is on the line, I explode, my thunderous voice echoing throughout the headquarters and making many a hardened rebel flinch. For all the shockwaves my dominant energy sends throughout the shifters, it seems to have no effect on the wizened witch. I'm well aware, Alpha, Helene responds coolly. Then, why aren't you more concerned, I bite. I'll remind you that I'm the one who has gotten you this far. Pup. I've been risking my life going back and forth between you two, conspiring with the rebels, passing messages and plotting against a tyrant. Helene reminds me. Do you believe I would take such risks if I wasn't painfully aware of the dangers we're facing? If I didn't care about Celine, you're also the one who brought my mate here, knowing what you would be up against. I growl in accusation. Don't do that. Helene scolds. Don't patronize your mate that way. She was going to come after you with or without me. The reality of what had happened while I was trapped by Arabella's spell hits me full force. I doubt Celine snuck off into the night without anyone knowing her plans, not when she had made arrangements to leave Lila with Drake and Sophie. That had to mean that the others had helped her come after me. They'd all broken their vows to put her life above my own. What was everyone thinking? I grouse. You all were supposed to protect her. I don't know if you realize this, but your mate is a determined woman. Helene drawls. Her mate was in trouble. There's not a force on earth that could have stopped her from coming after you. They were supposed to let me die. I object, knowing how irrational it seems to be angry at people who helped rescue out of nothing but love, yet unable to quell my indignant rage. You made that deal with your betas, not Celine. Helene reminds me. That was your mistake. However, this wasn't entirely true. Celine had promised me she would never come here. I'd forced her to vow never to follow me, no matter how dire the situation became. On one hand, it's completely hypocritical, because I would never make such a promise myself. But then again, my life is nowhere near as precious as hers. Or our children's. But she broke her word, and now we're in exactly the circumstances I feared most. Tumbun. I'm safe now, and she's hanging on by a thread in the grasp of a madman. I'm going to kill her. I murmur forlornly, feeling almost as if I might cry. Well, that's violent. James observes with a frown. Come on, old-timer, Matthew teases, clearly understanding where I'm coming from as he glances at his own mate. You never wanted to strangle your mate, just a little. James thinks for a moment, then shakes his head with a small chuckle. Of course I did, who hasn't? And you people think I'm the madman, Frederick grumbles. The difference is that none of us would actually do it. I snap, again picturing him towering over my vulnerable mate on that street in the video. All right. Enough arguing. Helene interrupts. This isn't helping Celine or your cause. She directs to the rebels. We need to talk about next steps. We need to get all your alpha male bullshit out of the way so we can work together to achieve our aims of wooing without killing each other, she adds, clearly reading my mind about the best way to put our differences behind us. If Celine knew I was free, could she escape? I ask, returning to the matter at hand despite my macabre fantasies of ripping Frederick limb from limb, depending on where he has her. Yes. Helene shares. She has her powers, but if she's in some bunker surrounded by guards, her magic might not be enough. And she can't risk using it unless it's certain she can escape. If Blaze finds out she got her powers back, he'll take them away again, Twine, and they're the only thing protecting her from his attentions. Wetand? Whetty. My wolf growls at the implications of the witch's words, and for the 1000th time my mind fills up with fear for what Celine is suffering while we all stand here arguing. So how do we get to her? I question. How do we get her a message, or take out the guards so she can get away? That's only half the question. Helene instructs me, looking around at the rebels. If she escapes and Blaze still lives, she'll just be on the run again. We have an opportunity here. If we do this right, we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, free your mate and the city together. We've been working on a mass insurgency plan for some time now. Matthew announces at my back, but we've never had anyone on the inside so close to Blaze, or an alpha, we're certain can defeat him in combat. I can feel his eyes on my back. And while I never intended to aid a revolution, I have no problem with killing Blaze. What happens afterwards? I ask him solemnly. I'll gladly get rid of Blaze, but I have my own pack to run. If you can help us oust him, we can handle the rest. Matthew assures me, we have the perfect leader in mind. Following the rebel's gaze, I see he's watching Grayson Thoven, who in turn seems mildly oblivious. My former cellmate blinks when he realizes where our attention has turned. What, me? Who better? Matthew questions. You have the strength, and you sacrificed everything in hopes of freeing this pack. I've also been in a dungeon for 10 years. I'm not strong enough to bring down challengers in this condition. He argues, if worst comes to worst, I'll take over in the meantime. Matthew offers. And when you've regained your strength, you can wipe the floor with me to take your rightful place. Grayson's expression shudders as he considers the other man's words. But after a moment, he nods in agreement, looking around at all of us with stolid determination. So what's the plan? I demand, glaring at Blaze. I thought you said the danger had passed. It has passed, my beauty. I'm merely being cautious. He insists, reaching up to drag his knuckles over my cheek. It's an annoyance to be sure, but one will get through. This is what happens when you abuse your people. I grumble, if you don't want to be annoyed, maybe you should respect their rights. Rights. He scoffs. More like a city full of spoiled children clamoring for attention and making unreasonable demands. I want to go back to my rooms, I announce, overflowing with disgust for the horrible man. You can't do that yet. He informs me brusquely. Why? What's going to happen? I ask. You know I normally don't mind your sass, but I don't have the patience for it today. He gripes, turning away from me. Wait! I exclaim, clasping onto his arm as a rush of inspiration strikes me. We're in his safe room surrounded by guards, but a man as paranoid as Blaze made sure his emergency refuge was large and comfortable, so our audience is safely out of hearing distance. Forcibly settling my blazing temper, I adopt the meditative calm I've learned to embody to capture the alpha's mind and stare deep into his eyes. Please tell me what's going on, I beg sweetly, pulling at his tongue with hypnotic force. His tense muscles relax, and he speaks in a dull, droning voice. There was a prison break, he utters emotionlessly. The rebels freed everyone from my dungeons. It takes all my willpower to stay in my calm trance, because my heart is immediately trying to leap out of my chest. Do you still have Bastion? I whisper anxiously. Number, Blaze announces in the same stoic tone. That's why we're here. He'll be coming for you. My mind is racing 100 miles a minute. I can't believe it. I went back with Blaze when Bastion was already free. If I'd fought him in the park like I wanted to, this could all have been over by now. Won't you please let me go back to my rooms? I plead, stroking his arm. The babies are making me tired and I need a nap. Go back to your rooms, he repeats dully. I'll tell the guards. Thank you, I breathe, fully intending to run right out the front door rather than going back to my suite. Let her go. Blaze orders the man blocking the door. Take her back to her rooms. But Alpha, you said DC'd. Are you questioning me? Blaze roars, not needing any encouragement from me to lose his temper. I don't doubt under other circumstances that the guard would never have dared to push back against the Alpha. But Blaze had been so adamant about me staying on lockdown that the man must have forgotten himself. The door swings open immediately, and the guard escorts me from the secure safe room. He's silent as we retreat down the hallway, and I hold onto Blaze's mind as long as I can, but I haven't learned to use this particular power at a distance yet. It works beautifully as long as I'm looking into his eyes, but unless I alter his memory it wears off rather quickly once we part. In hindsight, I should have made him believe that the danger was past. But my trick was so spontaneous that I didn't think of it in the moment. The guard and I have reached the floor below the safe room when Blaze's sentries come racing after us. charging down the stairs with fangs bared and claws extended as I make my escape. I can hear Blaze's bellowing voice above, and my heart plummets into my stomach as I realize my short-sightedness might have just cost me my powers. "Celine," he thunders, drawing closer with every second that passes. He appears at the top of the stairs above me, breathing heavily. "What have you done?" he demands, eyeing my silver cuffs with suspicion. "Grab her." Feeling that I have nothing left to lose, I send out an energy burst towards the guard who'd been escorting me, knocking him to the ground before he can ever lay a hand on me. Clever beauty. Blaze smirks, eyeing me hungrily. "What else have you been up to while I thought your hands were tied?" The sentries are closing in on me, and I'm preparing to lash out my powers again when a new chorus of alarms burst out, blaring throughout the palace's airy hallways. Blaze curses, gesturing aggressively towards his men. "Enough games. Take her now." I'm having a hard time keeping track of all the guards, realizing with horror that a number have circled around behind me while I was distracted. I send out more energy pulses, but there are too many of them, and I can't call the shadows without also blinding myself to my exit routes. Just then, a familiar voice sounds at my back. Celine, whirling around. I gape as my wide eyes land on Frederick. "What are you doing here?" I cry, edging toward him as Blaze draws nearer. "I came to save you," he explains in a tone saying this should be obvious. "Where are the others?" I question, not trusting the wolf on his own. "They're fighting on the lower levels." He shares, glaring past me at Blaze. "The game is up, old man." Blaze glowers. "And just who are you?" "Frederick Durand," Bastien's cousin explains, "and I'm not letting you take Celine. It's not up to you," the Calypso Alpha declares. "She's mine and so are her pups. Now if you care for your life, you'll leave us before it's too late." "Celine," Frederick grits out, "you need to run." "What?" I cry, feeling the room begin to spin around us. "Run," Frederick repeats. "Helene and Bastien are just 2 floors down." His wolf is right at the surface, his eyes glowing and muscles rippling. "What about you?" I ask anxiously, watching the way his jaw ticks with tension. "Don't worry about me," he instructs sternly. "Just go." Suddenly I realize what he intends. There's no way Frederick can take on Blaze alone, let alone Blaze and 24 guards. "Frederick, he'll kill you," I insist. "Listen to her, boy." Blaze smirks. "She might be a defiant, impossible little thing, but she's got twice your brains." "Celine, I can't get you out of here, but I can buy you some time." Frederick whispers urgently, "Let me do this for you before it's too late." "But too," I object, not knowing why I feel so distraught by the idea of losing someone who tried to destroy everything I care about. "Go," he commands fiercely, raising his voice until I flinch. I turn tail and take off down the corridor without another words, my pulse racing in my veins as I hear Blaze shout, "After her!" The sounds of feral snarls and clashing wolves fill the air, and I move as quickly as I can in my condition, cradling my swollen belly as I veer down the spiral staircases. I can hear whimpers and crashing, and when I glance over my shoulder, I'm surprised and pleased to see Frederick holding his own against Blaze's men. Guards litter the ground around his huge gray wolf, and for a few moments I actually think he might be able to succeed. However, almost as soon as I think the damning words, 2 guards close in on Frederick from behind while his attention is diverted. The Calypso wolves rip Frederick off his target, and he crashes into the wall with a sickening crack. Before he has time to get to his feet, the sentries lunge for his exposed belly. It all happens very fast. There are only a few seconds of agonized howls before Frederick's voice goes silent, replaced by thick gurgles of blood in his throat. I can see the moment the life leaves his eyes, and my stomach flips violently with pain and nausea. I never wanted anyone to die for me, not even Frederick. Still, I don't have any time to stop and process the horrifying scene, because in the next moments Blaze's sentries are after me, and I have no choice but to run. I make it down another flight of stairs before fleeing down the hall, repeating Frederick's words over and over in my mind. They're on this floor. They're on this floor. Wolves on my heels. I round the corner and almost crash headfirst into Helene. She's with a tall wolf I don't recognize, whose ears cock towards the sounds of my pursuers. The man shifts in a flash while I throw my arms around Helene. Goddess, I'm glad to see you. I exclaim. You too, little mother. She greets me warmly. Where'd Frederick? I can only shake my head. The sounds of more fighting exploding behind us. Helene purses her lips and nods. I feared as much. He was determined to make amends for his past crimes. That isn't what I wanted. I gasp. Not like that. I know, darling. Helene assures me, rubbing my arms in comfort, scanning the hall behind her. I try to catch sight or scent of my mate. Where's Bastien? I ask, immediately on edge when I don't find him. Helene's frown deepens. He can't let Blaze go free, Celine. What? I choke. You meaned. I can't bring myself to speak the terrible words. Yes? She confirms bleakly. He's gone to finish the steamy once and for all. Looking around in a panic, I demand. Where has he gone? His orders were for me to get you out, Celine. Helene informs me, not sounding as if she's particularly interested in actually following them. Then again, you are a headstrong young woman. And I'm just an old woman. It would be only too easy for you to overpower me and go after them. Them? I repeat, he's not alone. A deep voice sounds behind me. The man who had been standing with Helene before going to dispatch the guards, his with the rebel leaders Matthew and Grayson. Turning around, I study the strange man closely. I'm sure I've never seen him before, but he seems oddly familiar. He's got to be close to 60 years old, with gray-streaked hair and the gaunt form of a man who's known true deprivation. My wolf is already wondering if he might be my father, but the look on his face confirms it. He's looking at me as if he's seeing a ghost, his eyes shining with unshed tears. Hello, Celine, he greets me warmly. Are you? I stammer, too afraid to speak the words in case they aren't true. You look just like your mother, he tells me thickly. I never dreamed I'd actually get to meet you. Celine, this is James. Helene interjects, making introductions when she realizes we're both too emotional to get the words out. Your father. I'm already so emotional between escaping. Seeing Frederick die and finding out Bastien has gone to face Blaze that I instantly burst into tears. I thought you were dead, I tell him. Hesitantly reaching towards him, he pulls me into his arms without a second thought, and I can feel his bones protruding terribly. You've been Blaze's prisoner all this time. I ask through my tears. He nods, holding me so gingerly. I wonder if he thinks I'll break. Squeezing him more tightly, I encourage him not to be shy, unable to truly processing that I'm hugging my father for the first time in my life. I'm so sorry. I sniffle. Mom didn't know, I'm sure of it. I know, little one. He tells me. The truth is, I'd do it all over again for you two, though it did break my heart to hear what happened to you after she passed. Never mind that. When this is all over, you can come home with us to Elysium. You can meet your granddaughter and see the life Mom built for us. I'd like that, he agrees. But first we have to deal with Blaze. Helene, where are they? I ask, pulling away from my father for the first time. The throne room. My mentor answers simply, they lured him there after the alarms went off. He might have been distracted by you running, but I suspect he's found them by now. Swiping away my tears, I nod. Let's go. I and he. Bastion. We're surrounded. The plan worked perfectly, drawing Blaze to his ridiculously overdone throne room, while the other rebels stormed the palace. And Helene, Frederick, and James went to help Celine. I'm not sure yet if they were successful, but I know the best way I can help my mate is to kill Blaze. No matter where she is now. Well, what have we here? Blaze drawls, strolling into the great hall as if he doesn't have a care in the world. I'm sure from his perspective he feels perfectly safe. His guards are lining the walls on all sides, outnumbering us 20-1. Did you mutts not get enough time in my dungeon? He asked, looking between Grayson and I, then eyeing Matthew curiously. And you must be Matthew Crenshaw. I've been looking for you for quite some time. This ends now, Blaze. Grayson declares, setting his shoulders. Your time in control is over, and I suppose you think you're going to take my position from me? Blaze scoffs. You starved, scrawny, beaten. We have an army full of challengers. Blaze. Matthew announces. Even if you manage to defeat the three of us, even you have to get exhausted after a while. We'll throw challengers at you until you're defeated, and I suppose you expect me to simply accept. To fight you when my security forces could easily take you down with a snap of my fingers. Blaze taunts us, gesturing to all the guards around us. You could TD. But only a coward would do such a thing. A true alpha would defend his title in single combat, the way it's always been done, I argue. As he surveys our motley crew, his eyes linger on me. I'm no fool, Durand. These two might not have the mettle to take me, but after what I've been doing with your mate these last few weeks, I imagine you have enough rage to do some real damage. I try to cool my temper. Helene explained to me that Celine had been hypnotizing Blaze when he came to her room at night, but that doesn't change what he would have done if she hadn't had her powers, or the fear and pain he'd put her through during her captivity. I'm not such an easy mark. I inform the wretched Alpha. I may be angry, but you won't distract me from killing you. You shouldn't feel too badly, he continues. As if I never spoke a word, in a few months when your brats are born, they'll join you in the afterlife almost immediately. You won't have to be alone on the other side for long. Despite my promises not to get distracted, his words pull my attention completely sidey. Just not for the reason he intended. Brats. I repeat dazedly, plural, Bastion. Matthew grits out in warning. Don't let him get to you. Oh, that's right. Blaze smirks. You don't know. You should have heard the way your poor little mate cried when she found out she was having twins. You should have seen how sweetly she begged me to let your son live after I kill your daughter. His words slowly sink into my overwhelmed brain. Twins. A boy and a girl, and he was going to kill them both. I'm not sure if he intended to rile me up so much that I'll lose control, but all he really managed to do is give me more motivation than ever to wipe him off the face of the earth. Let me out. Axel demands, ravenous for Blaze's blood. Let me kill him. Not yet. I refuse, knowing we have to bide our time. How is this supposed to work anyway? Blaze interrogates, clearly trying to stall to divide our alliance. Who is going to lead if you can actually pull this off? Durand is a foreigner, and Grayson has been in a dark cell for a decade, but both are stronger than you, Crenshaw. You should be the rightful leader. But you know the pack will never accept you with these two roaming about. Shut up, Blaze. Grayson orders. Our partnership is based on a hell of a lot more than shared goals. We're not going to turn on each other, so you might as well come face us now and get it over with. Have it your way. Blaze sneers, gesturing to his guards. Take them. You fucking fraud. Matthew explodes. You're really going to let them fight your battle for you? You'd better believe it. Blaze declares, settling in his throne as if he's getting ready to take in a movie, rather than watch a fight to the death. I haven't held on to my power this long by taking needless risks. Besides, I'm betting you're only going to be interested in fighting for a little while longer. And why is that? I hiss. Because your mate got away from me a little while ago. And if I know her, she's not going to simply stand by and let you sacrifice yourself to protect her. He proclaimed confidently. A kernel of unease lodges in my stomach at his words. I ordered Celine's rescue team to get her out of the city with or without me, but what if she got away before they reached her? What if Helene and James break their word? Blaze is right, Celine. Will come if she has the choice. The only thing that can stop her is my team's commitment to the plan. Then, as if she heard her name and came running, I smell Celine's sweet scent and hear soft footsteps approaching on the other side of the closed door. No. I think desperately. No. Tell me she isn't. The doors bang open behind us. And by the time I turn to look, there's already a line of Blaze's guards circling behind Celine, James, and Helene, blocking their exit. Laying eyes on my mate for the first time in weeks is like a balm to my soul. I want to run to her and drink in every detail. But right now my outrage is stronger. What the hell are you doing, Sindine? Get out of here! To my great indignation. Celine digs in her little heels and tilts her chin up in defiance. I immediately take a step toward Celine. But Blaze lazily waves his hand, and a line of sentries crosses the floor between us, forming a human barricade between myself and my mate. Now Celine, Helene and James are completely encircled by guards, but my beautiful little wolf looks as determined as ever. If I so chose, I could barrel through the shifters dividing us with little issue. But I'm sure that's exactly what Blaze wants. He wants to distract me. He wants to use Celine against me. Unable to help myself, my eyes drop to my mate's belly. She's put on at least 5 pounds since I saw her last, and her dress is now ballooned outward by a healthy baby bump. Twins, I think again, in all of how much my wife has been through these last few weeks, and amazed by the miracle she's embodying. When our eyes meet, I can see her determination so clearly it's staggering. Nothing I say now is going to convince her to leave, even if it means she's in for the spanking of a lifetime, when this is all over tummied, which I can say with good authority she is. What? No reunion, Blaze jeers. Or are you too disgusted knowing she's been sucking my cock every night to go near her? Celine rolls her eyes. I know because I'm still watching her, trusting Matthew and Grayson to warn me if Blaze or his men make a move. You idiot! She snipes, raising her voice so the alpha will hear her at the other end of the hall. I haven't laid a hand on you. Celine, don't, I warn. I don't want her giving up her secrets in case this all goes wrong. You don't get to rewrite history just because your mate is here now, my pet. Blaze croons, still talking to her in that same besotted voice he used the first time he saw her, despite how crude he is about her when speaking to me. It's okay, Bastien. Celine assures me, my name like music on her lips. We're going to get through this. I'd like to see you try. Blaze counters coolly. Too late, I realize that Celine was willing to spill the beans about her hypnosis, because she and Helen are about to show their true colors anyway. Both women raise their hands to conjure their magic, and I finally understand their plan. They might be able to keep the guards at bay long enough to let Matthew, Grayson, and I defeat Blaze, assuming his own spellcaster doesn't come along to thwart them again. TSK. Blaze scolds, glancing at one of the sentries on his left. Go get Higgins. I can't say for sure, but if I had to guess, Blaze has just sent for his own witch, which means we have act now. Celine, I call over my shoulder. I'm not leaving. Bastien, she tells me stubbornly. I know, baby. I assure her, just do your worst, gladly. I can hear the smile in her voice, and moments later I see a thick black fog encroaching around us, blinding all the guards against the walls and leaving only the dozen men directly in front of Blaze in full view. I'm not sure what magic Helene might be wielding, since Celine's has surrounded us in darkness. But when Matthew, Grayson and I step forward, the guards still visible don't move an inch. What are you doing? Blaze demands of his men. Kill them. The three of us rush forward, lunging for the stationary guards and ripping their bodies off the floor. One by one, we throw them aside as if they weigh nothing. And then the three of us are bearing down on Blaze, who finally rises to his feet. Fine, he grumbles, finally seeming to see the sense of one-on-one combat now that he's outnumbered. We'll do this the old-fashioned way. So who's first? Why should we give you that honor when you offered us no such thing? Grayson growls fiercely, looking at something over our shoulders. Blaze's face splits into a terrible grin, because the odds just turned against you. And? Wet. Celine. For a long time, I never got the chance to see Helene's magic. She was so focused on training me that every time I asked about her own powers, she simply scolded me for taking my mind off our mission. It wasn't until we came to Tartarus that she finally showed me what she was capable of. Sungdi, beyond knowing the unknowable, that is. Together we actually make quite the pair. I can blind men while she can paralyze them, and I can't think of a better use of our combined talents in this moment. I know Bastian can defeat Blaze if he's able to actually get near him. The trick is making the Calypso Alpha play fair. I've been training myself not to get my hopes up these past few weeks, but when we first unleash our combined powers on the shifters in the room, I can't help but feel a surge of excitement. This can work. We can do this, I think. Pouring all my belief into my mate, I should have known better. I should have learned my lesson after a lifetime of crushed dreams. When Blaze first called for his spellcaster, I was simply eager to get a second chance against the man. But as soon as he arrives, the tide turns against us. The men Helene froze in place simultaneously broke out of their spell, and my veil of shadows begins to swirl as he sends gusts of wind through the room. All at once, the three wolves stalking Blaze on his thrones raised dais are forced to fall back and fight the army closing in on them, shifting into their wolf forms and fearlessly facing down their attackers. Blaze's sentries are relentless, one man after another charging the trio of rebels. Where are the others? I ask Helen and my father anxiously. I thought you said there were more rebels. They're attempting to seize the palace so that even if we fail here, Blaze won't be able to hold onto his power. My father explains in between incapacitating guards. We need help, I state nervously. There are too many of them. Have faith, little mother, Helene tells me, repeating the same words which have tormented me throughout my imprisonment. Faith can't win wars, I mutter, watching as Bastian's huge black wolf rips the shifter surging around him limb from limb with brutal efficiency. Looking beyond them, I see Blaze standing before his throne, looking down on the chaos with a triumphant glint in his eyes. Suddenly, I remember Helene's words when I was first learning to harness the shadows, about the fears utter darkness brings out in all of us, and the many skeletons Blaze has in his closet. Redirecting my obsidian fog for the Calypso Alpha, I swirl the black mist around Blaze, blocking out all his surroundings. Helen is busy trying to counter his spellcaster, but my own vindictive fury eggs me on, pulling ghosts and monsters straight out of Blaze's nightmares and manifesting them in the black veil surrounding him. I can hear his cruel laughter fade to a nervous grunt, and then his howl pulls all the attention in the room, bathed in shadows. The Calypso Alpha is quickly fraying at the edges, his worst fears and darkest secrets pummeling him in a relentless assault. I can feel his spellcaster's eyes on me, contemplating some way to stop me, but I think the man is afraid of harming me and infuriating Blaze. That's right. I think maliciously, you just stand there and watch while your master unravels. All of my attention is focused on maintaining the shadows around Blaze, and I can almost see his flailing limbs through the impenetrable fog. Helene and James are urging me on, but their voices sound distant to my ears. I'm so intent on torturing the horrible man that I don't notice the scene around my shift until Helene tumbles to the ground at my feet. Her cheek lands on my foot, and my concentration breaks as I look down at her in shock. Too late. I realize Blaze's sorcerer must have found a loophole to attacking me Thoin by attacking my mentor. I have no idea what he's done, but one thing is painfully clear as I stare down at Helene. Her eyes are wide and vacant. Her chest has ceased moving with her breath, and she's so still I might think she was paralyzed. Were it not for the fact that her heart has ceased beating, horror fills me as reality sets in. And I realize I was so distracted and consumed by my desire to punish Blaze that Helen was attacked mere inches away, and I didn't even notice. After 150 years of surviving no matter what, my wonderful mentor has been vanquished T, and by a tyrant's crony, no less. Helene is dead T. And it's all my fault. Helene always said I would be her last student. I didn't realize she was speaking so literally when she said it though. I wonder if she knew from the very beginning, from the first day we met, that I would be the end of her. My dazed mind struggles to come to terms with the fact that 2 people have died for me in under half an hour. And even though I feel so stunned, I think I must be dreaming. Guilt is already washing over me in a tidal wave of shame and regret. Dropping to my knees, I roll Helene onto her back, shaking her gently and calling her name even though I know she can't hear me. Helene! I cry. Helene, get up! My father is bending over me, his large warm hands on my shoulders. She's gone, Celine, he murmurs. She's gone. You can't help her now. No. I insist tearfully. She's lived forever. She's got more power in her little finger than I do in my whole body. She has to be faking. This has to be some kind of spell. Sweetheart, you have to focus. My father coaches. Blaze still lives and your mate still fights. It's over for Helene, but it doesn't have to be over for you. Little by little his words seep into my brain, and I'm finally able to look up at the scene around me. Bastian, Grayson, and Matthew are still fighting tooth and nail, but Blaze and his spellcaster are standing side by side, looking only too pleased with themselves. This is what defiance gets you, my beauty. Blaze informs me, now be a good girl, and come to me before anyone else gets hurt. I thought I knew what anger was. I've certainly felt pure rage on any number of occasions in the past, but this is something else. This is a righteous fury, unlike anything I've ever known, even towards Garrick after so long in captivity. I've wanted to escape men before. I've even wanted revenge, but I've never wanted to kill Thuddy. I've never felt the cold-blooded desire to snuff out another human life the way I do now. Rising to my feet with an eerie sense of calm, I move past Helene's body and lash out my power, feeling it flow out of me more powerfully than ever before. Over the months we trained together, Helene always taught me to tap into my deeper feelings in order to bring up my magic, but it's never been so effortless as it is now. I don't even need to think about it. I simply want to destroy. For the first time, my shadows and the white light I normally draw from the moon combine, traveling throughout the room like a bolt of vengeful lightning, and downing men left and right. It doesn't kill them. I'm not even sure if it knocks them out, but it certainly stuns them. I do it a second time, sending pure electricity racing towards every guard I can see, and relishing the sight of them falling where they stand. I have no idea what this power is or how I accessed it. It's hard to even look at 70 the shadows and blazing moonlight tangling together like glowing onyx. Bastian, Matthew, and Grayson were still fighting, busy taking down all the shifters I couldn't risk targeting without hitting them too. I'm not even sure if they realize Helene is gone. But I know once they've finished dispatching their victims, there's still one man standing between them and Blaze. I've been able to feel Blaze's spellcaster poking at my magic from afar since I first tapped into this new well of power, and the more guards that fall, the more aggressive he's become. He looks absolutely petrified, holding up an invisible force field around himself and Blaze while he tries to figure out my magic. Unfortunately for him, he needs to understand it in order to stop it, but I don't need to understand it in order to use it. With great pleasure, I launch my magic towards his magical shield, astonished when I'm able to see the actual air currents vibrating around his hands as my power erodes his own. He groans with the effort of resisting me, but his shield crumples little by little until there's nothing left between him and my blazing magic. It zaps him just as easily as it zapped the rest, and I'm just about to turn the force onto Blaze when my knees go weak and my head begins to spin. Using so much power with so little restraint has sapped my strength almost completely. And my father catches me when I begin to topple over. Luckily for us, I managed to eliminate most of the barriers dividing Bastien from Blaze, crashing through the last guards, standing as if they're fleshy bowling pins. Bastien closes in on Blaze, who looks as though he's seriously regretting letting me live. The Calypso Alpha is breathing very heavily, though he's done nothing to break a sweat thus far. He hisses gruffly, "I guess it's down to you and me, Durand." The words are barely out of his mouth when Bastien attacks, his energy seeming unwavered despite how hard he's been fighting. Since this all began, I suspect he's experiencing the same sort of adrenaline-fueled outrage I am. And though he doesn't show his exhaustion, I fear he might be in the same situation I was, where I didn't feel it until it was too late. Gathering the last remnants of my energy, I shoo away the shadows and focus on drawing the pure white light of the goddess's power and channel it towards my mate. It isn't much, but I have to hope it might help restore his strength, if only just a little. I can't tell if it does any good, because Bastien doesn't pause when it hits him. He moves with the lethal grace of an apex predator, making the other alpha look stiff and clumsy in comparison. They smash into each other with a deafening roar. And all that's left for those of us left standing to do is watch. Bastien and Blaze roll around on the marble floor in a tangle of fur, teeth and claws, vicious snarls and growls emanating from their snapping maws as they battle. For one terrifying moment, I see Blaze's sharp fangs come dangerously close to ripping into Bastien's vulnerable underbelly. But my mate jerks away just in time. It's almost impossible to keep up with their frenzied movements, and my heart is in my throat the entire time. I say a series of silent prayers to the goddess as they tumble and whirl, yelping and roaring every time one of them lands a hit. Bastien is larger than Blaze, but I'm afraid the Calypso Alpha has some tricks up his sleeve. Their thrashing bodies crash onto the dais, where Blaze's throne sits, knocking the ornate chair over onto its side, and forcing a yelp from Bastien's mouth as his body lands on top of the seat's sharp edges. He uses his paws to push off of the lavish furnishing, veering towards Blaze with his fangs bared, a ferocious growl reverberating from deep in his chest. Wolves around the room shiver at the sound, his power so palpable that even Blaze stumbles in the face of it. That momentary lapse was all Bastien needed, taking advantage of the other man's shock and using the opportunity to sink his razor-sharp canines into Blaze's throat. In the end, it all happens very fast. So fast I can scarcely believe it's real. After years of running scared and living in hiding, the monster from all my worst nightmares is struck down in a matter of seconds. It seems wrong somehow, as if it's too anticlimactic to truly be the end of our epic journey. But that's the way life is sometimes. One moment you're full of vitality and vigor, adrenaline pumping and feeling as alive as you ever will. And the next, it's all over. After everything that Blaze has done, I'm actually glad that he meets his end this way, with my mate's powerful jaws around his neck, struck with a mundane end like any other wolf. He doesn't deserve a noble death, or one that's noteworthy in the grand scheme of things. He deserves as unremarkable and callous an end as all the shifters whose lives he stole over the years. And he gets it. One moment his glowing eyes are boring into me from all the way across the room, and the next the light winks out of them as Bastien snaps his neck clean in two. My wrathful mate can't stop himself from giving Blaze's corpse an animalistic shake as the tyrant hangs limply from his mouth. And then he drops him like a ton of bricks. Blaze falls to the ground before his toppled throne sown teen. Dead as a doornail. As long as I live, I'll never forget the sight of Bastien killing Blaze, or the strange sense of relief to watch another being's life snuff out so brutally. Under any other circumstances I might be horrified, but now there is only the eerie sensation of all my fear evaporating at once. It almost happens too fast, ricocheting me back and forth between such extremes of emotion that my brain needs to shut down in order to cope. I actually black out for a few moments, the world going as dark as my shadows as I try to process what has just happened. Luckily, I'm not alone. My father is by my side anchoring me to reality. And before long my mate is there too. Of course I didn't see it happen. One moment Bastien was shaking Blaze like a ragdoll. The next he's in front of me. He's back in human form, bloody, bruised and naked as the day he was born. I can barely comprehend that it's over, that the danger has really passed. Still, my wolf is rejoicing as Bastien takes my face in his powerful blood-stained hands. "Are you okay?" he asks me urgently, looking me over from head to toe. "Are you hurt?" I run my palms over the torn skin of his chest, not yet convinced this is real. "Celine, talk to me," Bastien begs, glancing at Helene's fallen body. Staring up at his rugged features, I feel my limbs begin to tremble. Am I dreaming? The tension seeps out of Bastien like air from a punctured balloon, and the next thing I know I'm wrapped up in his warmth. "No, little wolf, you're not dreaming," he murmurs against my skin, trailing tender kisses over my hair as he strokes and pets me in soothing patterns. "It's over. It's all over, Helene." I manage to sob, fisting my hands against his back, and Frederick, "I know, baby," he croons. "I'm so sorry." Behind us, I can hear Blaze's former guards muttering. All the while Grayson and Matthew limp over to us. "You must be Celine," Grayson says by way of greeting. I start to pull back to greet him, but Bastien won't let me go. He keeps his arms locked around me tightly, so I simply turn my head towards the Calypso wolves and nod hello. "That's right. I confirm. Thank you so much for helping us. If anyone is owed thanks, it's your mate," Matthew answers, patting Bastien on the back. "He saved an entire city today, not on my own." Bastien corrects them, "And the city is far from safe. You two have your work cut out for you." Glancing around, I notice all of the guards who'd been fighting the trio of rebels a few minutes ago are now bowing their heads with their nails tucked between their legs, clearly showing their respect for the new leaders. Grayson and Matthew scan their ranks. "You sure you don't want to stick around to help?" Grayson questions. "We could use some of that brute strength of yours. Once you get healthy again, you'll have brute strength of your own." Bastien chuckles. "What happens now?" my father asks, looking back and forth between his former cellmates. Someone answers him, but I don't actually hear the response. I'm too amazed by the thought that just went through my head. My father is alive and standing next to me. Unable to help myself, I reach for James, pulling him into my hug with Bastien. He seems uncertain at first, but Bastien welcomes him easily. "She's a cuddler," he explains, positively purring. James laughs and cushions my back for a few long moments before pulling away. The men go on talking about all the things that have to happen now, all the steps to transition the government, but I'm not hearing any of it. I'm simply floating in Bastian's arms. I feel as though I'm on cloud 9. Finally able to relax for the first time since he stepped out the door in Elysium, Bastian's hands are surreptitiously traveling over my body, as if he doesn't trust that I'm actually okay and needs to feel for himself. As if the pups growing in my belly sense their father's presence. A tiny foot kicks the wall of my uterus, right on the other side of my mate's hand. Bastian jolts, looking down at me in surprise and awe. Was that? The babies are glad you're okay. I tell him tearfully, even though I'm anxious to do an inspection of my own. Bastian looks as if he's been dragged through a meat grinder, and while I understand that we've just created a storm of chaos and can't simply walk away from it, I want nothing more than to be along with my mate, to make sure he's actually unharmed. By the way, he's continuing to paw me. I know he feels the same. Babies, Bastian repeats hoarsely. We're really having twins. I thought maybe Blaze was toying with me. We're really having twins. I confirm, offering him a watery smile. The next thing I know, Bastian has lifted my feet off the ground and is spinning me through the air, apparently forgetting how delicate my stomach is in his excitement. Whoa, I protect, gripping his muscular biceps. You're going to make me sick. He immediately puts me down, brushing the hair from my eyes. I'm sorry, I'm just so happy. I've been too scared to really think about it, I admit, pressing a steadying hand to my dizzy brain. I wasn't sure I'd actually get to meet them. I'm so sorry, Bastian professes, pulling me close again. I'm so sorry I put you in this situation. You didn't. I assure him, noticing our audience inching away out of the corner of my eyes. Clearly they can sense things are getting personal and have to good sense to slip away before things get too intimate. I came after you. I surrendered to Blaze. Oh, I remember. Bastian tells me ominously, sending a shiver down my spine. Are you mad? I squeak, peeking up at him from beneath my lashes. More than you know, he informs me darkly, even as he ducks his head to nuzzle the curve of my neck. But that's for another time. Right now I just want to be with my beautiful mate and know that everything is finally going to be okay. Do you really believe that? I ask anxiously, not in defiance, but needing to hear him tell me that we really are safe. Is it really over? Yes, Bastian promises, kissing my neck. You and I are going to have to get used to the idea that danger isn't hiding around every corner, as crazy as that seems. I love you so much, I tell him, turning my face up to his and silently begging for a kiss. He doesn't make me wait. His mouth claims mine without hesitation, slanting over mine while his tongue teases the seam of my lips, then delving deep when I open for him. I whimper as he devours me, feeling my body light up like a firecracker just being close to Bastian again. I love you too, he tells me when we part. More than anything, as happy as I would be to continue basking in Bastian's embrace. I'm impatient to leave. I need to be alone with my mate. I can't stand the smell of Blaze's blood on him, and I need to make sure his injuries aren't worse than they look. Besides, Luna is going wild in my head, beyond eager to come together with our mate and reaffirm our vitality. I'm about to ask if we can leave Thindes, despite the fact that I have no idea where we're supposed to go Thinde, when footsteps sound in the distance. Not the footsteps of a few curious courtiers coming to see what's happened, but the synchronous thud of hundreds of heavy boots. I immediately stiffen. But Bastian assuages my worries as if he's reading my mind. It's okay, it's the rebels. The doors all around the throne room slam open a few minutes later, and one by one the members of the rebel army march into the destroyed throne room. Matthew and Grayson welcome them as liberators of the city, and though it doesn't seem clear which one of them is going to be taking over as alpha, their first orders to their troops are in perfect agreement. When Bastian, My father and I stride out of Blaze's palace a little while later. It's to the sight of thousands of shifters emerging from the underground. They pour from their subterranean prison like so many ants, squinting in the bright mid-afternoon light and shielding their eyes from the sun. Though most are confused, and many seem afraid this is all some elaborate trick, the rebel army continues to usher the huddled masses into the light. Whatever else may happen in Tartarus, one thing is clear: Phythesi will die with him, and the people of the Calypso pack are free, at long last. Bastion. When I set out on this journey, I never planned on being gone for so long. I thought I'd travel for a few weeks, deal with Blaze as best I could, and return home before Celine started showing. Maybe it was naivete on my part, but there's no denying things did not go as expected. Now, as I lie in bed a full 12 hours after the entire world as we knew it imploded, I'm merely grateful that we survived. Celine is bundled safely in my arms, and our pups are growing safely in her womb. I still don't know how we managed to make it through the last few days unscathed, physically at least. I know the losses of Helene and Frederick are already weighing on my mate, and she hasn't even begun to process their sacrifices. But we have plenty of time for that in the days to come. In fact, we have all the time in the world. We're both eager to get home to Lila as soon as possible, not to mention that I'm dreading the mess I'll be returning to in Elysium. But for now, there isn't a single force on the planet that could move me from our hotel bed, except, of course, for a certain insatiable little mate, whose round behind is currently rubbing against my hard cock as she pretends to squirm in her sleep. I know you're awake, little wolf. I inform her indulgently, rubbing my palm over the gentle swell of her belly. Adorably, Celine pretends to stir and stretch, feigning waking up despite my words. She rolls onto her back and parts her lashes, looking up at me with those stunning two-toned eyes and making my blood heat up to 1,000 degrees. Good morning. She greets me with a mischievous smile. Do you think that you're going to get yourself out of the doghouse by being adorable? I ask, capturing her lips and preventing her from answering until I've had my fill of her saucy mouth. Is it working? She inquires slyly when I pull away a few moments later. Well, it's certainly distracting me. I tease, kissing her again. Celine and I have a lot to talk about in the weeks to come, not the least of which are all the broken promises and risks she took to come after me. Make no mistake, I'm touched and grateful beyond belief that she did 70. But I also can't stop seeing her in Blaze's grip, or imagining how much worse things might have turned out if we weren't so unbelievably lucky. Still, neither of us is ready to have those difficult conversations anytime soon. We're both too content to bask in the warm glow of our triumph and too eager to reaffirm our bond. You know, I almost forgot about this part of the second trimester, Celine confesses, arching her back into my hand as I run my thumb across her taut nipple. You have no idea how hard it was when I was carrying Lilasa to be so worked up all the time, but not have you around to relieve the ache. Chuckling, I lower my mouth to her breast, still exposed from our lovemaking last night. And I suppose you're feeling twice as needy this time around, I guess? That's right. Celine grins. I definitely won't be able to focus on anything else for a couple of months at least. Sliding my hand between her legs, I find her soaking wet. I don't know, as worked up as you're feeling. I think we might need to be careful with these twins. I wouldn't want to risk too much excitement. Oh no. Celine replies earnestly, eyes wide as she shakes her head. Excitement is a very good thing very healthy for me and the babies. Are you sure? I question skeptically, lazily petting her swollen core. I think maybe I should ask your doctor. She'll agree that I'm not made of glass and treating me like I am is a bad idea. Celine insists, grinning up at me. Well, in that case, you should be more than able to withstand the spanking you've got headed your way for all your naughty behavior. I state nonchalantly, dipping my fingers into her tight sheath. What? Celine exclaims, pushing herself up onto her elbows. No, that's too much excitement. You can't have it both ways, baby. I laugh, sitting up and moving between her legs. Besides, I think someone's forgetting just how needy you get afterwards. Celine whines and squirms, rocking her hips towards my thrusting fingers and moaning. When my thumb finds the swollen bud at the apex of her thighs. But we've only just reunited, she complains. I know. I answer, sinking down until my mouth is mere inches from her sweet arousal, which is why I'm talking about someday in the future, not today. I explain, flicking my tongue out to taste her. Celine moans and arches, tangling her fingers in my hair as if she's afraid I might pull my head away after so small a taste. The distant future, right? She prods, gasping when I suck her clit into my mouth. More like the not-so-distant future. I amend, teasing her entrance with 2 fingers. Now, do you want to keep talking about this, or do you want me to make you feel good? Feel good. She sighs instantly, dropping her head back as I purr against her slick mound, sending vibrations through her most intimate flesh. I make a home between her legs, teasing and tormenting her delectable sex with my mouth and fingers, relishing the taste of my sweet mate and wondering how I ever survived so long without this. I can tell how long it's been when I slide my fingers into her clenching channel, the thick digits stretching her tight inner muscles despite the fact that I already lavished her with attention last night. Before long, Celine is panting and rocking her hips into my mouth, and despite my plans to draw this out, I can't bear to make her wait when she's giving herself to me so completely, curling my fingers inside of her and finding the rough patch of skin bound to make her see stars. I rub it until she explodes around me, crying out and gripping my hair so tightly my scalp is sore. Rising up to kneel between her legs, I press the blunt head of my cock to her entrance. Think you can handle some more? I ask her, already knowing what her answer will be. If you don't, I'll cry. Celine tells me, pouting and lifting her hips in invitation, sliding into her welcoming heat. I can't contain the growl that builds in my chest. And as much as I urge Axel to be gentle, being away from my mate this long has definitely taken its toll. Celine whimpers as I thrust home, wrapping her long legs around my waist as I find a handhold on the cradle of her hips, and nudge that special spot inside her. Hold on, baby. I don't think I can take it easy this time. Good. Celine answers, her wolf glowing in her eyes. I need you to claim me, Bastien. I need you to make me forget we were ever apart. I need to feel you so deep inside me that I'll never get you back out. Swearing under my breath, I pull almost all the way out of her before thrusting back into the hilt, slamming home with enough force to make her cry out. She whimpers as I begin to move, setting a grueling pace and letting my inner predator take over completely. Celine's swollen belly keeps me from covering her completely, but I find I can't get enough of watching her writhe beneath me, impaled on my hard cock and desperate for more. Her small hands fist in the sheets around us, and I find my eyes lingering on my mark as I claim her body. My mouth already watering as I anticipate the moment I'll sink my teeth into her tender flesh. Much sooner than I expected, Celine is coming again, contracting and milking my hard member and eviscerating my resolve. Flipping her over onto her hands and knees, I pound into her silky heat until I feel myself nearing my own peak, then drag her shoulders up until her back is flush to my chest and the luscious curve of her neck is beneath my lips. My fangs are already extended, and as my climax crashes over me, I sink them into my well-worn scars of my mark, reclaiming her as my own. Withdrawing my fangs as we both come back down to earth, I continue to lave her skin, the familiar tang of her blood coating my tongue in the best way. How was that? I ask, leaving her neck long enough to steal another kiss from her lips. Too rough. It was perfect. Celine beams, nuzzling her face into my neck. I never thought I'd say these words, but everything it perfect. Almost. I correct her gently. We still have to retrieve our pup before everything is perfect. She nods in agreement. Then what are we waiting for? Celine, why do you have that look on your face? I ask Bastien, suspiciously eyeing his tense expression as he guides our car through the winding mountain roads. My father is in the back seat napping, and another vehicle follows behind us, transporting Helene and Frederick's coffins. It's both grim and comforting to be returning home under such circumstances. And I know Bastien is feeling as conflicted as I am about feeling so happy when our journey cost us so much. Still, I don't think that's what's bothering him, Tuan, but something clearly is. Are you worried about how the pack is going to receive you? Number. Bastien sighs, anxiously rubbing the back of his neck. Then what? I press, wanting to comfort him the same way he's comforted me over the last few days, after the initial elation about surviving wore off. 1,000 distraught feelings closed in around me, threatening to pull me under. Nightmares about Blaise, guilt about Helene and Frederick, sorrow about their losses and anxiety about the baby's servant. My pregnancy hormones didn't help, but Bastien was there for every last unpleasant and unwelcome feeling I faced. At first, I think Bastien is going to ignore my question, but eventually he sneaks a glance my way out of the corner of his eye. It's Lila, he finally admits. Of all the potential explanations, this is the last one I was expecting. What about Lila? It's stupid, Bastien says, attempting to brush off his worries. Come on, just tell me, I encourage. There are no stupid worries when it comes to being a parent. Again, it takes what seems like an age for Bastien to find his words. But gradually he opens up. She only knew me for a few months before I left, he says softly. What if she doesn't remember me? Or want me back, Bastien? She's been asking for you every day. I share. She was doing it before I left, and Drake says the only thing that changed after is that now she's been asking for both of us. For a second, Bastien looks relieved, but then his face falls. Why doesn't that make me feel better? He questions solemnly. Because having a pup is like taking your heart outside of your body. I reason, unable to stop my lips from quirking upward as I continue. And instilling it in a tiny illogical munchkin with the power to light up your entire world while also driving you slowly insane. We both want her to miss us, but feel guilty that she was hurting while we were away. I explain. I feel the same way, and we're about to have 2 more. Bastien murmurs, downsizing, mildly terrified to feel 3 times the stress, anxiety, pressure, and pure depth of love he feels now. I know. I agree, not needing him to say anymore to understand what he's thinking. And if you thought Lila was reluctant to accept the idea of 1 baby, wait until we tell her there's going to be 2. I joke. Although the more I think about it, it's really not a joke. Bastien laughs. Gods, I can't wait to see her. I can't wait to meet her. My father adds, she's going to love you, Dad. I tell him with a grin, half smiling because it's true, and half because I simply can't help myself every time I say that word. 25 years and I finally get to call someone Dad. Just one more thing that doesn't quite seem real. How much farther do we have to go? He asks, clearly antsy being confined in such a small space for so long, so soon after escaping prison. About an hour. I tell him. Drake and Sophie brought Lila to Elysium to meet us, so that we wouldn't have to go all the way to the West Coast after already driving so far. Have your betas told you what to expect? James asks Bastien. From the sounds of it, things were pretty contentious when Celine left. They've been trying to smooth things over with the back in anticipation of our return. But I think we're in for a difficult few months. Bastien shares, glancing at my belly again. Reaching for his big paw, I give it a squeeze. We'll be okay. I promise. After what we just went through, we can handle anything, even 2 babies in the middle of a revolution. Don't even joke about that, Bastian scolds. You and I are done with excitement, little wolf. From here on out it's only wedded bliss, rambunctious pups and non-death-defying adventures. If you say so. I smile, giving his hand another squeeze. Besides, there's no better adventure than raising a family. Exactly. Bastian nods in agreement. A little while later, we cross over the high mountain ridges into the Nova Pack territory, and shortly after that the city comes into view. The closer we draw, the more excited I become, practically bouncing up and down in my seat. I'm so eager to see my precious pup. We pull up to the pack house just before sunset, and within moments our family, both real and adoptive, come pouring out the front door. Odette, Aiden, Donovan, Drake, and Sophie all come racing out to greet us. And as thrilled as I am to see them, there's only one person I really care about in this moment. Stepping out of the car, we're enveloped in an endless stream of warm hugs. But I'm already looking around for my pup, wondering why she's not with any of the others. Drake has only just told us she's napping when I hear her small voice in the distance. Mommy, Daddy. Bastian and I both rush inside to meet Lila as she comes flying down the stairs, both warning her to be careful, despite the fact that we both want her in our arms as soon as possible. I'm crying by the time she flies into my arms, and for once, I know it's not the pregnancy. Bastian's arms come around us both as we cling to each other in the middle of the stairwell, and I realize I'm not the only one crying. Lila is sobbing into my neck, and Bastian's eyes are shining with tears as he rains kisses down on us both. Mommy, you were gone for so long, Lila wails. And Daddy, you promised you'd be home ages ago. I know, little one, Bastian tells her huskily. I'm so sorry. Why'd you leave me? She cries, balancing between our bodies, one arm around my neck and one around his. We didn't want to, Angel. I assure her, I'm so sorry. I promise we'll never leave you again. Bastian vows, stroking her long, dark hair. It takes a while for us to all calm down, tending our overwrought emotions with lots of snuggles and reassurances. My heart both aches and overflows with joy to be reunited with my baby, even when she tells me how fat I am. About an hour after we arrive, Lila finally settles, nodding off between us on the couch. Of course, before she actually goes under, she remembers to ask a very important question. Did you bring me a pea-twesant? Lila murmurs sleepily. Bastian and I laugh, and I can't resist tickling her tiny feet, despite the fact that she'd been nearing sleep. As a matter of fact, we did. I share, earning myself a baffled look from my mate. Really? Lila inquires groggily. What is it? Can I has it now? Beaming at my father over Lila's head, I encourage him to come forward. Actually, we brought you a grandfather. Lila sits up, suddenly very awake and cocking her head to the side. Really? She questions curiously. Really? I reply, flipping her around so she can see James. What do you think? Lila clambers off of our laps, toddling across the rug to stand in front of my father. She looks up at him with wide eyes, and I fear I'm going to start crying all over again when I see the way James is looking at her, as if she's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. Hello, Lila. He greets her gently. My pup studies my father closely for a long moment before nodding and looking over her shoulder at us. I keep him, Lila declares firmly, turning back to smile shyly up at James. You're mine now. As I watch my father laughs and pulls my pup into his arms, I lean into Bastian's familiar warmth, trying to stay present in this incredible moment even as my mind whirls through the past. I truly can't believe how far we've come, and as difficult as our path was, I can't regret a moment of it. After all, if things had happened differently, we might have never reached this place. Our family is whole at last, and that is worth every hard day, every trial and tribulation. I'm safe for the first time in my life. My daughter is safe. And when her brother and sister arrive, they'll never have to fight for their freedom. Bastien and I took our sweet time finding our way back together. But now, we're stronger than ever. Nothing and no one can ever keep us apart. What are you grinning about? Bastien asks me, pulling me from my thoughts. Nothing, I answer, leaning over to kiss him softly. I'm just happy. Good, Bastien remarks, returning my kiss with one of his own. You should get used to it. You've got a lifetime of happy ahead of you. Beaming, I fall into the bottomless pools of his silver eyes, feeling truly at home. I know.